one of the stories I want to get into, now this is a big one that you may not have heard about, but it does say something about what is happening to corporate media. I told you guys that corporate media is seeing a downfall. I told you guys that corporate media is dying. Okay, so this brings up the issue with Comcast, because Comcast just announced, and this is not good for MSNBC. Comcast announces a plan to spin off cable channels. This includes MSNBC, CNBC, and USA. So Comcast is cutting the cord with MSNBC. What did we tell you guys, right? Post-election, we told you the numbers were not looking good for them. It says Comcast announced a plan Wednesday to spin off most of its cable television networks into a separate publicly traded company. The new company will include USA Network, CNBC, MSNBC, Oxygen, Sci-Fi, and the Golf Channel. Comcast will retain key NBC Universal assets, including the NBC Broadcast Network, NBC News, NBC Sports, the streaming service Peacock, and the cable channel Bravo. The transaction will be structured as a tax-free spin to existing shareholders. This is coming from Comcast President Mike Cavanaugh. While we don't have a precise timetable for completing the transition, we are estimating that it will take approximately a year. Comcast owns NBC Universal, that is the parent company of NBC News. The move comes as the traditional cable television bundle faces stiff economic headwinds, most notably the rise of cord cutting and shift to streaming alternatives. Comcast cable portfolio still contributes to its financial bottom line and helps expand its cultural footprint. So, MSNBC News, we told you that they were struggling. They were having some difficulty. Eric, can you tell me if I'm at a tilt? I don't know why. It feels like I'm slanted for some reason. Anywho, we told you that MSNBC News was struggling financially. We told you that they were seeing some serious problems. And now you're starting to see that Comcast wants to cut the cord with MSNBC. Again, all of this is happening post-election. We told you that MSNBC, they were losing ratings. They're still losing ratings for their primetime shows. People are turning away from MSNBC and CNN because people feel deceived. People feel duped. Now, they don't want to get into all of that, but I'm going to tell you, people feel duped and people feel deceived because both of these particular outlets allowed people to believe that this was a close race. It wasn't. Both of those outlets allowed people to believe that Kamala was just soaring so much, whether it was the polls that they chose to share you where she was doing well and not showing you the polls where she was doing poorly. It's things like that. So what was interesting as well is that even on News Nation, Bill O'Reilly is calling it out. Even Bill O'Reilly is calling out where they went wrong. And as you can see, they were talking briefly about that clip of Mika and Joe Scarborough, where they were discussing that they went to go meet with Donald Trump. You guys know they got a lot of flack for that. Listen to what listen to what Bill O'Reilly had to say.
Comcast said, you two, we're going to have to try to mend some cliche fences, and you two are going to go in there and you're going to try to tamp it down. Because Comcast knew the next day they were going to announce that MSNBC is vapor. That is a huge media story.
Why is it vapor? Just because they're spinning it off and putting them in they're spinning off a bunch of brands.
There's no spin-off.
Yeah, there is. It's a spin-off company.
There's no spin-off. See, you buy the propaganda, Cuomo.
Oh, okay.
See what I mean about
I'm just saying
people?
What's being reported.
All right.
But what do you know?
Yeah, I know, but why would you believe what's being reported? You want the real story? Here it comes.
Please.
So they're uncoupling their word, Comcast, MSNBC from NBC News. That means MSNBC has no resources at all. None. They're not going to be able to pay these people millions of dollars, Rachel Maddow, whatever she's making. NBC News is saying, we don't want you around. Why?
So remember, Rachel Maddow makes about what, 30 million? I think we said it was $30 million that Rachel Maddow is making. So just keep that in mind. Again, they are not going to be able to pay these people. I give it about maybe a year before you start to see some of these hosts look for work elsewhere, because where are they going to get this money from? The reality is you're paid in primetime news. You are paid based on not just your performance, but your ratings, right? Rachel Maddow had the highest salary on MSNBC News because she was receiving the most ratings at that point in time. So that makes you wonder, are they still going to be able to pay Rachel Maddow $30 million? I don't think so. I don't see how they can. I really don't.
Why? Because NBC News' numbers, Lester Holt and the Today Show, are catastrophe, because half the country equates NBC News with MSNBC and they won't watch. So NBC is desperately trying to save the mothership of information, and they have to throw MSNBC overboard. They're not putting anything into MSNBC. They want to sell it. So where's Georgie Soros now? Georgie's buying radio stations. You can get MSNBC for nothing. They'll give it to you. They don't want any more of this.
You hear this? They'll give it to you, he says. They don't want any more of this. And this is a good point that he brought up. How many of you ever mix the two, NBC News and MSNBC? Do you guys ever mix the two? I mean, I really don't think about it. I feel like we hear more about MSNBC News more than we hear about NBC News. Or maybe that's just me. But he's saying that people mix the two. So now even Lester Holt is also starting to see a decline in ratings because people, I guess, are conflating the two. And it's just, I don't know. NBC News does a little bit of a better job than MSNBC. They're still kind of biased too, but I think they're better than MSNBC. So now they're getting mixed in with these guys, right? We cannot forget when we talk about the propaganda, Rachel Maddow sat there for years telling people about Russiagate. Did Rachel Maddow ever come forward and apologize for saying, oh, I'm sorry, I was wrong about that? No. That's the other thing. When they get it wrong, how often do they retract what they said? Are they apologizing to viewers right now for misleading them about how close this election supposedly was? What are the repercussions for misleading the public? Now, these outlets, they want to point fingers at social media. They want to point fingers at those of us that do independent media, and they want to say we're the problem. But they're the ones that are spreading the propaganda. They're the ones that are lying to people. They're the ones that had all these Americans thinking that this presidential race was close all this time. Now, listen to what Bill O'Reilly says about the why. This part's kind of funny.
Yes. Why? Because it's hateful. Not because it's so far left. The whole NBC Comcast hierarchy is far left. But it's hateful. They hate Trump. They hate people who vote for Trump. Everybody knows that. And you know what's next? The View. ABC News is going to have to cut ties with The View.
Do you guys believe that? Do you think he's right? He said MSNBC is hateful. You know, I think when you have shows like Morning Joe that sits up there and they call Trump voters names and they call Trump names and they say who raised these people, that's Morning Joe. When you have Rachel Maddow using classism to describe how I guess Trump voters are just not educated enough. They kill me with the whole uneducated voters. First of all, let's debunk that. When you say uneducated voters, it gives people the impression that these people never went to school. So all of us had to go through K through 12, whether you were homeschooled, whether you went to a public school, whatever. So stop calling people uneducated that they went to school. Stop it. Just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean that you're uneducated. So they kill me with that. So there's those numbers as well. Bill O'Reilly, I've had my gripes with him because he's been kind of all over the place too. But he is correct here. He's correct about that. He said they want them gone. Now he brings up The View. And it makes you wonder again, what have you heard coming from The View the past couple of days post-election and also leading up to the election? It has been very hateful. Sonny Hostin is out there calling people misogynist and racist, and it's sexism, it's misogyny, all these types of things. You know, they're labeling people in such a way because they didn't agree with their candidate, their chosen candidate that they wanted. They have been very hateful. That's just a reality. And I said it before and I'll say it again. The View needs to go back to being the show that it was when Barbara Walters first created that show. It was not a political show. It was a, lifestyle entertainment type show. They talked about lifestyle. They talked about celebrities. They talked about movies and TV and all that kind of jazz. And then somewhere along the line, they started to focus too much on politics, especially when Meghan McCain became a cast member of The View. Now we talk about the hateful. I got beef with Meghan too. Meghan McCain, you miss me, girl. I miss me, girl, because she's not my favorite person either. But one of the things that Meghan McCain said when she left the show is that the women on the show were cruel to her. And you know what? I believe it. Now I believe she was cruel too. But I just don't see any of those women being nice. It's very catty. And it's like this girls club where, like, if you don't agree with us politically, if you're not on our side, we don't really want to be bothered with you. And that's the impression that I get from them. But I've watched them day after day get onto that show and spew rhetoric against people who either did not vote or didn't vote for Kamala, voted but didn't vote for Kamala, or were looking towards third-party candidates and were interested in voting third party. They shamed voters. They called people names. Whoopi Goldberg is an actress, right? I mean, look at all the people that came through that show. What happened to Rosie O'Donnell? What happened to the woman? She used to argue with Rosie O'Donnell all the time. Does everybody remember she was a cast member on Survivor? And that's how I think she got discovered. Elizabeth? I want to say Elizabeth, right? Look at all these people that left. Elizabeth had problems when she was on the show, had problems with the cast. Rosie had problems. Like, they just cycled through people. And so to me, it's like that says something about the show itself, right? So I think he has a point. Now he's alluding to, he thinks they're going to try to cut ties with The View as well, because again, it's hateful. How are you bringing people together if you're just demonizing people all the time, telling people that they're uneducated, saying, who are these people, calling everybody misogynist and everybody sexist? How are you bringing people together in that way? Right? And it's a morning show. So is that what you want to hear at the start of your day? Ay, ay, ay.
And you saw that today or yesterday when Sonny Hostin had to read a legal statement in the middle of a segment. The lawyers got Whoopi Goldberg's ear and it said, we're bringing a statement in on a teleprompter. She reads it. So it is over for these far left networks. Done, never coming back. Dracula's stake in the heart. Who benefits? News Nation may, but CNN, which is on the ropes too, will probably get some MSNBC viewers. Wow. There you go.
What do you think of that?
Well, I'm certainly not going to accuse him of not making sense.
Yeah, I mean, how can you? And I guess I don't know if Stephen A. Smith is now also either a co-host or a contributor for News Nation, but I know Stephen A. from sports. For those of you who are not aware, that's Stephen A. sitting next to Chris Cuomo. So I know about him from First Take. I used to watch him on First Take all the time. I had to take breaks from that because I can only listen to Stephen yell so much. But that's where I know him from sports. But I noticed he's been getting more into politics. So I don't know if he's kind of working with News Nation now or not. But Bill O'Reilly, again, like, every now and then he does make sense. Like I said, sometimes like I'm just like, Bill, be quiet. But I don't consider The View to be a far left show. I think he's wrong with that statement. They're not far left. I wouldn't even call them left. They're just the quote unquote status liberals. Like that's pretty much what it was. And they have two conservatives that are on the panel. You notice they always have more liberals than conservatives. Whoopi says she's supposed to be independent, but she not. I mean, it's stuff like that. Yes. Hasselback, that was her name, Elizabeth Hasselback. She was another one that had problems with the host on the show. See, I remember a lot of these things. So I think he brings up really good points. Now, one of the things that he mentioned was that Sonny had to read a legal note about Matt Gaetz. And I want to show you that as well. This is just another example of something they had to do because they were stating something as fact. And the legal note doesn't say that. Listen to this.
It's because he wants to make sure they look good on screen. Sonny, you have a legal note.
I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented, and saying in a statement to ABC News that this false smear following a 3-year criminal investigation should be viewed with great skepticism. That DOJ investigation was closed with no charges being brought.
We'll be right back.
So as you can tell, Sonny obviously didn't really want to read that message, but Sonny's a lawyer, so she should have known better, right? Instead of making those statements, you know better. Now, that brings up this question. What happens to MSNBC now? And I think you guys are going to get a kick out of this one. Guess who is entertaining buying MSNBC? None other than Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks. I can't even make this up. Get ready to laugh, folks. Cenk Uygur said, imagine if the Young Turks bought MSNBC. We'd need financing to do it. Oh, they need money, y'all. They need money. Here we go. Here's the next grift. Here we go. We'd need financing to do it. But imagine if we turned it into a populist channel. It would get far better ratings and could actually help the national conversation. It would be the ultimate sign that online media has won. So if I remember correctly, I think Cenk Uygur started with MSNBC. Originally, he was, part of corporate media. He got tired of the way that corporate media was covering certain stories. It was particularly, particularly around President Obama, the way that they were covering for Obama. And he was pretty tired of that. And so he decided to start TYT, which at that point in time was like an online show, and it evolved into so much more, right? But it's just interesting. Now it's like, why would you want to go back into that realm? Like, I thought the point of TYT was to break away from that, to not be a part of cable news, right? So why would Cenk Uygur now want to entertain buying MSNBC? I think they're good where they're at. And he's right. They would need the money to do it. And I wonder where that money would come from, right? Like, it would probably come from you guys. I don't know. Like, they'd say, hey, donate to this so we can try to purchase MSNBC, right? So I don't know. I don't know about that. But people in the chat, this was interesting. Bob the Builder said, I'm sorry you've destroyed your credibility. The Young Turks have always presented itself as left-leaning quasi-news platform. Your recent shift is fascinating, but it comes across as which way is the wind blowing type of change. You don't have it. Sorry. Terry Van says only people over 65 watch cable news. Stay where you are. ALX said, what would be the fate of Rachel Cuban's program? Commotion King. I watched videos of you guys on YouTube today for the first time in a very long time. I'm part of MAGA crowd that truly roots for your voices to be in the mix. I'm wishing for the best future that can be going forward and I root for you as well. Best wishes. Interesting. I don't know. Mike McGinty says, Jink's been getting cozy with Elon. Yeah, I heard him tweet something about that as well. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I should have created a poll about this question. Like, how do you feel? Law of self-defense says, so that's why you've been buttering up to Elon Musk the past few days. Worth a shot, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like it kind of takes away from just being online news. Like, if you're going to go to cable network this, like, why? And then he said we could bring a populist lens to it, but I would imagine, again, like, you would still belong to someone else, and I don't think you would be able to get that message across on cable news. I mean, call me like crazy, but I just don't think, I don't know, this sounds like a new grift. Like, I'm just keeping it honest. I don't know. I don't think that's a good idea. But that's what's happening, folks. MSNBC is definitely experiencing some serious concerns there, some troubles. Oh, I would love to be a fly on that wall, ladies and gentlemen, in that studio to hear what's being said among Rachel Maddow, among Joy Reid. I wonder what that conversation is like. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.